Okay, let's get this thing started. Good morning, everybody. I'm Meteorologist Edward Shaw, and going to give you all a little bit of a weather update here as we take a look at what's going to unfold within the next few hours with this system. It's going to come into the area later on today, bringing some severe weather along with it. Now, earlier this morning, we did see a little bit of a frontal system come through the area, or a prefrontal system, and that brought in some showers from time to time, some heavier rainfall, and even severe thunderstorm warnings further to the west in parts of Wytheville and Wythe County, and then into West Virginia as well. Now, since then, those showers have since diminished, certainly a little bit of good news, and rain has passed out of the area with the exception of areas just west of 77 out towards Galax, Grayson County, and further to the west. Now, we're expecting those showers to continue to push a little bit further to the east here over the next few hours, and then eventually we'll start to see the main line of showers and storms from that front come through. Now, taking a little bit of a wider look here, as you can see further to the southwest, that's where we're currently seeing this severe weather threat. It looks like they're at about 8:17. There was a confirmed tornado warning. A tornado was on the ground, parts of Louisiana, with severe thunderstorm watches all the way up into nearly all of Alabama, parts of Mississippi, and parts of New Orleans down into Louisiana. So tornado is on the ground further out to the south. So system certainly going to bring in quite a few impacts to most of the country. We've seen yesterday what damage that this storm did. There were multiple tornado warnings in parts of the Midwest, and it's been quite a bit of wind damage from this system as well. However, it may look like we'd be pretty much in the clear as of this radar image. It's not the case, as we got to take a look at how this whole thing is going to play out. It's currently within our region. Again, maybe a few rumbles of thunder further into some of those southern counties of our area. So certainly some heavy rain bands down there. But the biggest thing from this morning is the fact that the Storm Prediction Center, based out of Norman, Oklahoma, actually ended up decreasing our risk for significant tornadoes, in turn leading to a little bit of a reduced risk in severe weather. Now, we're still under a risk for severe weather, don't get me wrong. It's just not as bad as what we were seeing yesterday. So if you remember, if you were watching us or staying up to date this time yesterday, that enhanced area, so you see this orange that's in parts of Greensboro, Raleigh, Fayetteville, into central North Carolina, and extending into most of the Carolinas, Georgia, and Alabama. That was actually up into parts of the Roanoke Valley yesterday and some of our eastern counties, as well as south side. Now, that has since been a little bit more relegated to parts of North Carolina, just given the overall setup of this system. But again, still not going to want to rule out any kind of tornadic development or hail in some of these stronger systems that pop off. Damaging wind gusts, though, again, still the number one priority with this system, as that front is going to be particularly nasty with straight line wind damages, possibility of 70-mile-per-hour wind with this system, so certainly going to have the potential for severe weather. Not everybody's going to see severe thunderstorms. Not everybody's going to. But quite a few of us are likely going to see them later on in the day. So the ingredients for this whole setup, today's temperatures, they're going to be up in the 70s throughout most of the region, which is not overly warm, but it's going to be warm enough to provide us with thunderstorm development later on. Specifically, and I want to draw your attention to two places, the Lynchburg zone and the South Side zone. As we look at the moisture part of this, you're seeing that green come up from the south. That's all moisturous air that's coming up from the Gulf and into the mid-Atlantic. Now, once this front interacts with that, that's when we're going to start to see a little bit more when it comes to tornadic development here, especially in parts of the south side region and parts of the Central Carolinas. Greatest risk being primarily east of I-81 for tornadoes, but can't rule it out elsewhere as well from this system. Again, about 5% chance that a tornado happens at any given point on this map or within a certain mileage of this map. So certainly not something to take lightly. Better to be prepared than to be caught off guard, as with any real disaster. Now, let's time out the actual storm system for you. So you can see about 8 a.m. this morning, That's where that front is, a little bit further to the west. But then take a look at what's going on down towards Knoxville. You can see here about 11 a.m. we start getting a little bit more pink within our simulated reflectivity, which is essentially showing where storms will pop up. And the big thing I want to draw your attention to, look at this clearing that's happening all the way from up towards D.C. and the Maryland area down into the Roanoke Valley. That clearing is going to provide energy and sunlight for a lot of these storms to develop, which is why we're expecting this severe weather risk to happen in the afternoon between about 1 to 5 p.m. Storms will fire up New River Valley, likely around the 1 o'clock side of things, before continuing to the Roanoke South Side area and even the Lynchburg area later on in the day. Now, as that front pushes east, you can see by 6, 7 o'clock, a lot of us are already dry, a few breaks in the clouds, but most of this threat will then linger into parts of central Virginia, along the I-95 corridor, and all the way up into parts of the Northeast, and as far south as the Carolina coast and out towards Savannah, Georgia, as well as elsewhere. Now, this cold front is pretty organized. It's going to come through, and that organization is why we're looking at this being a pretty significant wind threat to our region rather than a significant tornado or hail threat. Now, again, we can't rule out the threat for tornadoes or hail, but certainly not our primary concern. You see that enhanced risk that goes up that I just talked about. It's from the Gulf Coast up into parts of our region here, much farther to the south. But looking at what we can see from an overall standpoint, most of us under a slight risk for severe weather. Again, wind damage, I've said it before, and I've repeated it. Biggest threat, wind damage. Tornado and hail can't be ruled out, and I think with this system, it's going to be a little bit more nasty than the last 2 alert days we had, where we did have severe thunderstorms develop, and we had severe thunderstorm warnings come out of those. They just weren't as prevalent within the area. This, I think, could have a little bit more punch when it comes to some of these storms, as it's going to come through in the afternoon when we've had daytime heating, rather than overnight hours into the morning when we've seen mostly cloudy skies and cooler temperatures. So, with that being said, how does this all play out in terms of a storm reports situation? Well, let's take a look at that real quick, see what this storm has produced, because it's produced quite a bit elsewhere along in the country. So turning on our storm reports, you can see quite a bit when it comes to hail, winds, and a few tornado reports as well. So certainly a lot of these debris signatures picking up tornadoes in parts of Mississippi, out towards Missouri. Now granted, there's a little bit more energy and they were a little bit more warmer when this came through yesterday, but certainly already seeing our first tornado on the ground for the morning in parts of Louisiana. And again, multiple reports of hail damage, even extending further to the north into our area and just outside of it, out towards Buchanan and parts of West Virginia. All of that came as a result of those prefrontal storms that came through this morning that were severe thunderstorm issued. However, again, we're going to have a little bit of a break here in the late morning to early afternoon before storms fire up about 1 to 2 p.m. If there's any good news with this, again, it's the fact that the enhanced risk has been dropped for most of our region. The Storm Prediction Center saw something that made them think that we were going to end up not having the risk for tornadic development as previously expected, but still certainly a chance we could see some later on in the morning and later during the day. Your 10 to 10 for the day, we get up to about 78 degrees. By 2 to 3 p.m., that's going to when we see that peak daytime heating within our region. And then going into the afternoon, those peak daytime heating hours are going to coincide with the greatest threat for severe weather within our area before we start calming down a little bit more in the evening hours and overnight and into tomorrow. High temperatures for the day, again, that area that's in the southeast, south side, mostly south of or east of Route 29, that's going to be the area that we end up seeing the greatest severe potential, given the fact that temperatures are warmer out there and the front will have more time to get into the area when we've seen more heating, more moisture, and more energy in turn. As for the next 7 days, again, today is the severe weather day. When we get through today, though, tomorrow looks pretty nice. Temperature is going to be a little bit cooler in the 60s. That goes into Wednesday as well. Now, while further out to the west, There's going to be multiple days of severe weather in parts of the Midwest and Great Plains. Not going to be the case for us, as we look likely to have a few springtime showers to start April off with Thursday and into Friday. But the other thing, notice, temperature is going to get back into the 80s again by Friday and Saturday. But it looks like we could be in for some cooler weather next week, according to our long-term forecast models. So, hey, if you're a fan of the warmer weather, you got the end of the week to look forward to. If you're a fan of the cooler weather, we got tomorrow. But regardless, got to get through today first with our alert day. We're going to continue to update you as this system heads closer to us. But again, right now, the key takeaways. Greatest threat is wind damage. Can't rule out tornadoes. Can't rule out hail. They just don't appear as likely as what we were seeing yesterday when we were looking at models and surface observations. And then we get later into the week,